Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Noah Mincis, and today I'm joined by a very special guest. So this is Eric Castellano from Amazon Lit. Eric, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, what's up, everybody? My name is Eric Castellano. I'm the founder of Amazon Lit, and I'm hanging out here in northern New Jersey in my Amazon FBA warehouse. And I'm happy to be here, excited to talk shop right now. Noah, I appreciate your time and invite me on the show.
Awesome. So the first question that I want to get started with is, how did you get started selling on Amazon? Right now, you're in your warehouse. I mean, everyone can see that. The title is a $5 million a month Amazon seller, which I'm sure is a recent accomplishment that you reached. But where did it all start? Where are the humble beginnings from?
Yeah, so the humble beginnings are in Clifton, New Jersey, in a basement. Humble Ted, I'm sure some of you have seen Humble Ted around, who's Sebastian, my business partner's uncle. Sebastian was actually renting out a room out of his home, his Ted's childhood home in Clifton, New Jersey, and his aunt, Sebastian's aunt, knew somebody who was selling products online. So Sebastian was a bartender at the time. I was working construction. I was a college student, and we were working for the man, right? I'm sure a lot of us know what that feels like, and it didn't feel like there was a way out. Just a weekly paycheck, no opportunity for growth. So we said to ourselves, you know what, let's give this a try for 1 year. We'll give it a try. We'll put all of our strength and all of our might into it for an entire year. If it does really well, we'll keep doing it. If not, we can always go back to what we used to do. And that's kind of where the birth of the business happened. It started with retail arbitrage from Costco and BJ's and Sam's Club and stuff like that.
So what's really interesting to me is that even today, and you mentioned this was 7 years ago that you started?
Yes.
So even 7 years ago, it's still the same game. There are still people doing retail arbitrage. There are still people that started last year. I talked to another seller who I think just reached their first 7-figure year, and they got started doing retail arbitrage about a year and a half ago. So it's crazy, just seeing how even today it's still roughly the same process.
Yeah, it's exactly the same process, except now there's just more opportunity. You know, a lot of people look at it as more competition, but I tend to not see the negative. I look at it as more opportunity. There's more prime shoppers than there've ever been, almost 150 million. That's a lot of potential customers.
Were you getting the same question back then of is Amazon a viable opportunity? Is e-commerce, worth it about 7 years ago?
I don't think anybody was really talking about it 7 years ago.
Really?
You know, there was no YouTube videos. There's no Facebook groups. There's definitely no training. There was no Instagram accounts talking about it. So it was just like, I didn't really tell anybody because nobody cared, you know?
It was the same way for me. I started roughly about 4.5 years ago. I got started flipping, and I would say I'm selling on eBay, and everyone would be like, oh, you're just selling used stuff. That was kind of what it was, but really no one knew about Amazon. So, I mean, from here, where I want to basically go is I want to take the stream in 3 directions. I want to start, again, how you and Sebastian started. I think you guys have a great story.
Yeah.
I've connected with a lot of different sellers, but I don't think I've actually met someone who's done exactly what you do. And obviously, you guys have reached a level of success that most sellers don't attain. And I really want to dig deep in the hour, hopefully, that we have, and just focus on what it is that allowed you to get there without spilling any trade secrets. And hopefully someone could learn from this, and who knows, we have the next $1 million seller in this chat. And other than that, I just also want to talk about Amazon in general, opportunities, where it's going in the future. And then after that, a little bit about your hustle and grind, because you are one of the most motivating people I know.
I appreciate that, man. You know, it definitely takes some days I don't always feel like it. You know, I'm a human. I'm a regular guy just like everybody else, or a regular person just like everybody else. Some days I'm just not feeling it, but I've trained my mind and my body to act otherwise, right? To play the part, to play the role, to wake up and just be like, you know what, today is the day, regardless of how I feel, regardless of the external circumstances, I'm going to change my mindset and change my internal circumstances to fit the day how it needs to be fitted in order to get as much done as humanly possible.
So going off of that, what's changed from selling on Amazon since when you began until today? What is like the biggest change that you think of? How do you think it's, drastically changed from when you started?
Yeah, so 7 years ago, it's definitely a little more lenient as far as Amazon's terms of service. We didn't start specifically. What I'm discussing is like IP complaints, right? And account health issues. 7 years ago, even 5 years ago, we didn't receive any account health issues unless we were shipping an order late fulfilled by merchant. But other than that, nobody really was paying attention to Amazon because it wasn't as big. But now, because so many shoppers are shopping on Amazon, big brands are recognizing that, and they want to have more control over the products that are sold. So in order to have more control, they have to start sending emails to sellers. And a lot of it, which most people don't know, a lot of it's just scare tactics. We get a letter, an IP complaint in the mail. Most of the time we just file it in a cabinet and never look at it again, because most of these are baseless claims stating that we can't sell their products. But back to your point, that stuff didn't exist, 5, 6 years ago.
In some ways, it feels like the way that you described it, it was easier back then than it is today because of the fact that, to my knowledge, category gating was not as much of an obstacle back then. IP complaints, brands like Disney were not selling on Amazon. You had all these brands that were not as vigilant. And now today, yes, e-commerce is really growing, and absolutely the market's growing. Amazon's also growing, but it seems there's just like more pitfalls, if you will.
Yeah, and I think it's great, right? Because from any business standpoint, the more obstacles there are in the way, the more people who are going to fall off along their journey, which creates more opportunity for the people who are willing to persist and push forward regardless of the adversity that happens. So it really separates the action takers from the people who are not going to be successful. So I think it's a great opportunity for anybody who's determined to keep pushing through.
For an account of your size, do you have an Amazon rep? How does that look? For me, I get a policy complaint. If my account gets terminated, that's it. I can't really call up anyone. But for you guys, I feel like you're big enough, or maybe you're not. Maybe I just don't know the size of other sellers. How does that look when you guys, account health was?
Yeah, so our account health, listen, we have a ton. We have literally hundreds of different complaints, between IP complaints and just everything. I've posted some pictures.
I saw that. It's like, you're like, if you ever want to worry about these and you have like 300 IP complaints, I would have a heart attack, honestly, if I opened that up and I saw that.
Yeah, so we do have an account rep, but the thing is, anybody could get an account rep, right? It's through SaaScore. It's between $2,000 to $5,000 a month. And if you don't meet that requirement, or if you're over that, it's a percentage of your sales. I forgot what the percentage off the top of my head is, but to be completely transparent, the account rep is more for like insider details, promotions Amazon will be running. It's not like if we get suspended, and at 2 a.m, I call my account rep. I'm like, hey, account rep, like we just got suspended. How can we fix this? Like, that's not what they're there for. They're more just to be an inside information of, hey, we got this promotional deal happening. You could save a couple bucks on these products if you sell in this category. They're more for like an inside information aspect, opposed to like, oh, my account's suspended, let me call my account rep. It doesn't really work like that. I wish it did, or I would pay for 10 of them.
I would also pay, but I don't have $5,000 per an account rep. That's crazy. Honestly, like at that level, there's just so much. I was watching, or I think I was reading a link from ASGTG, and there was a guy who was doing $10 million a year. And even then, he faced a complaint and his account was gone overnight. Yeah. And you feel like when you reach that level, you hit some level of success. But in the grand scheme of things, in Amazon's view, you're just really not that large.
Yeah, no, we're dropping the bucket. But also, you always got to be mindful. I read the seller forums a lot, and I'm in a lot of these Facebook groups. Whenever you hear a story like that, there's always something that's not being shared from the seller's perspective, whether they were manipulating UPS for shipping rates, or they were selling inauthentic products, or they were manipulating reviews. There's always an underlying issue. Amazon just doesn't suspend accounts for absolutely no reason. There's always a reason behind it. Most people just always want to be like, oh, I didn't do anything, save face, but they did something.
Definitely. So my next question is, what advice would you give to someone who is just getting started with Amazon? Hearing your story, I'm sure it motivated other people. That's how I got motivated. And honestly, I actually came across your content. I believe the first one was on YouTube, and it was roughly about 2 years ago. And that was when I was transitioning more to FBA. And at that point, I was doing more wholesale. I was just drop shipping. So I was just drop shipping from these suppliers. And then I never really took any exposure to sending items into Amazon. But through you, as well as also through Scott Needham, I learned that not only is Amazon the best logistics company in the world, and you have the opportunity to be a part of that. It's not like you can go ahead and start selling on Apple and then you can take a part in their revenue, or you can go and Target and even sell in theirs. But if someone wants to go ahead and get a part in the Amazon space, how would they get started? How would you recommend for them to get started today?
Yeah, I would say find a few legitimate sellers that you can trust and you know their information as well. And in the sea full of gurus today, that's very challenging, especially if you don't know what to look for. You know, you talked about Scott. He's phenomenal. He's great. He provides a lot of, super great, insightful, correct information, because that's really what you want to look for. We provide a lot of great information. I've shared stages in Clubhouse with you. You provide a lot of great information. So you want to really focus on the people who know what they're talking about. And then also, I think one of the biggest components of really getting started is exactly that. Just getting started. I find that a lot of new sellers get caught in what I like to call analysis paralysis, where they watch 16 weeks of YouTube videos and they're just consuming information. They got notepads full of notes, but they don't actually ever just go to a Target and buy something to list on Amazon, or go to Ross or go to Walmart and buy something retail arbitrage to gain the real life experience. That is always the most valuable experience, is that real life experience.
So you still think it's viable to get started with retail arbitrage today?
Yeah, absolutely. I know people are doing hundreds of thousands of dollars a month, and even, millions a year just doing retail arbitrage. But keep in mind, it is tougher to scale the business. But if you're just starting out, it's no problem. Go spend $500 at Walmart or Target or something. There's no reason you can't flip that inventory on Amazon.
It's really great to know, honestly, is that even when you guys started that 7 years ago, it's still so viable today. You can just go into a store, pick up a phone, even the Amazon app, and just start scanning.
Yeah. It's crazy what this thing gives us access to. Literally millions of dollars can be made right here from your cell phone. It's crazy.
What was the vision? It was a computer in your pocket. That's the
yeah. There's no excuse. There's no excuse nowadays.
No, there's none. And that was something that I had to learn, is you have the technology. You have everything. The advice is on YouTube even now. There's so much information. 20 years ago, you just couldn't, you needed to go to the library or something. Now you could just go online.
Yeah. It's all readily available. It's all accessible. That's why the other day I put on Instagram, it was just the best website in the world. It was kind of like a joke, but I get so many questions through the DMs that it's just and some of them literally, all you would have to do is put the question you asked me on Instagram into Google, and it would give you a way more detailed answer than I could give you. But
I'm sure your DMs are flooded.
Yeah, with so many people, they want to skip the Google part. Spend some time in Google. Google's a wonderful Google University.
So let's talk about the action that's going on behind you. You run a almost $5 million a month. I believe your last month was one of your best months.
Yeah,
the screenshot that you showed.
Yes.
So what is it like running that size of a business on Amazon? I know on Instagram you share a bit of information about your employees, your processes. So what is a day-to-day operation like? And I know I was just in a live stream with you before, and you said it changes from day to day. So in a typical week of Eric's life, what does it look like managing a almost $30 million, if not $40 million a year business?
Yeah. So there's a lot of communication, right? So we have different teams here, like this team behind me right here. These are the guy in the black shirt. That's Greg. He's our warehouse manager, and the other two are our pickers. So what they're doing right now is they're picking inventory, counting invoices, checking the inventory that was just received, making sure that tomorrow when the employees come in, they have enough work, everything's set up at their production station. So nobody's standing around, right? Because if people are standing around, I'm not making money, the company's not making money. So that's just one of the teams. We have a few teams. We have a buyer team, which has 5 buyers on it. And then we have our production staff, which is the staff that produces our inventory. And then we have management. Like right now, I'm sitting at one of our managers' desk, Caddy. She manages the production stations. In front of me, we have 5 production stations. And then we also have web developers. We have 4 web development staff who help build our software and help us tap into Amazon's backend to make our lives a little easier. So a lot of my day is just managing these different teams and just making sure that they're all communicating. because from my experience, 99.9% of my problems, whether it's personal, business, traffic, at a grocery store, is a lack of communication. So I just make sure that all of these teams are communicating properly, that they're documenting the information that needs to be documented, and that the business continues to run smoothly on a daily basis.
So there's a lot to break down there. And I know that it's a really large operation. And as you said, it took you 7 years to get there. Personally, for me, where I am, I think I'm also in a similar situation to where a lot of people are. I currently run this business out of my house. I was looking actually to get a warehouse, but as you know, space in New Jersey doesn't come cheap. So I think my main question would be, I used to work for a guy and he needed to know everything that you were doing. So when we started using Shopify, let's say, he would also need to know how to learn Shopify because he felt that at someone his level, even if you were the boss, you still needed to know every aspect of the business. So do you feel that you need to know every aspect of your team? Like, do you need to know a little bit about web developing to know what's going on? Or is that easier since you have Sebastian and you have other people overseeing that?
Yeah, so I think it's important to understand the fundamentals of every aspect, especially like web development, right? I don't think I'm ever going to become a web developer, right? It's just not something that I have in my mind as a goal, right? And also it's a completely different language and I don't really have time to learn a new language. So like web development is not something I personally need to learn. Sebastian's never been a web developer, but because we needed web developers, he's been working closely. He manages the development team, and now he's learning a lot about web development. So what we did was we brought on, because we didn't know about web development. This is just an example, but we brought on someone who was skilled in that industry, and we paid them decent money, and then we brought people under them so they could manage that team. Right? Because we had no idea where to start with web development. I'm not a developer. But I think what is super important for anybody looking to bring on their first employee, second, third, fourth employee, important task that you should understand is your production process, like how all your products are handled, packaged, whether it's poly bags, bubble wrap, FN SKUs, do not separate labels, like all that needs to be understood, as well as a firm understanding of how Seller Central works. It's important to, I can't even stress the importance of understanding Seller Central.
So if I understand that correctly, it's like understand the basis of what makes you money, i.e. Amazon. Jeff Bezos knows how to code, knows how to distribution, etc. But he might not know about marketing or doing everything like that because you hire experts and you have other people when you're at that level who can do it for you.
Yeah. Like something else, I'm knowledgeable in. I'm definitely not a professional. I know a lot about it, but like Amazon advertising, so when we launch new private label products, we pay a company to manage our ads. Now, because the ad spend's higher, I manage about $8,000 to $10,000 a month in ad spend. But if we're going to put 30, 40, 50,000, I'm going to pay somebody to do that for me.
Do you think that some of your buyers and some of your not really your packers, but your buyers and the people who go through their purchases, go through and even the people who connect, or I don't know exactly what you call them, maybe the people who reach out to your suppliers, do you think that they're like more skilled at that job than you are currently? I don't know if on a day-to-day you reach out to suppliers or if you go and like sift through their products.
I'd like to say that they're very skilled or equally skilled, but at the end of the day, like every single piece of information that our buying team uses, I myself or Sebastian has trained them on it, right? So we encourage them to be free thinkers and think outside of the box, which is great because each buyer buys a little differently, which is great collectively for the company, but really I would say the best way to explain my job is I'm a problem solver, right? I sit up in my office, I'm there for probably 12 hours a day, 10 hours a day. And for the 10 hours that staff are here, my office is just every 20, 30 minutes, someone's coming in asking a question. Hey, this happened. How do I fix this, this, and this? Now, best case scenario, those continue to slow down, which they have. If I'm doing that for the next 5 years, there's a problem on my management skills. But that's essentially what I do every day. I solve problems, manage teams, and just keep the operation flowing smoothly.
Solve problems. That's entrepreneurship in a nutshell.
Yeah. Absolutely.
The next thing I want to talk about is suppliers and how to find suppliers, how to get started with products. As I said, I do wholesale drop shipping. I think it's a similar process. So even when I was talking to you about connecting with suppliers, for me, I go ahead and I want to work with a supplier like indefinitely because when I'm drop shipping, I find products and then I connect it, and I like, it's all about making sure it's in stock, and you want to set up with a supplier right away. For you, how many suppliers are you contacting? How many suppliers are you going through? What's the process look like there?
So I think it would be better to kind of to talk about what we did early on, right? Because right now what we're doing is completely different. We have a set. We have like 6 base suppliers that 70% of our inventory come from, and then the remaining 30% of inventory comes from maybe 20 or 30 other suppliers that we're placing monthly or biweekly orders from. So it's completely different now than it was early on because our business has grown and we've harvested those relationships. But early on, I think the best way to really get a large amount of suppliers, profitable suppliers, because you don't just want suppliers, you want profitable ones, is to literally knock on a ton of doors. And what that means is sending emails, picking up the phone, calling them, attending trade shows, and building those relationships. Because like the companies we do business with now, when we started with them 4 or 5 years ago, we weren't getting nowhere near the discounts we were getting, or even the product selection we're getting now. So over time, they begin to trust you more, and you become real friendly with them. And then, you have dinners when you fly to their city, and they fly out to see you, and you really harvest that relationship. So I would say knock on a lot of doors, make a lot of phone calls, send a lot of emails, open a lot of accounts, because a lot of the accounts are going to be trash. Some of them are going to be good.
So how do you do that without being annoying? When you're going and knocking on a lot of doors, you're going to get a lot of no's in your face, obviously. But is there a process where, you send them a message, you wait to hear back from them, you wait a certain amount of time? What's that process like?
Yeah, I love no's. I literally thrive off of no. Nothing makes me happier than when a supplier tells me no. It just motivates me even more. But yeah, there's a process. The first thing I like to do is if they tell me no, most people will just be like, okay, and hang up the phone. That's one of the worst things you could do. I'll see you, Russ. That's one of the worst things you could do. You want to ask questions like, why? Why don't you accept third-party sellers? Is it because you've been dealing with a third-party seller who's giving you problems? Have you had a poor experience with them? Are you trying to manage your brand? Because I've been doing this for so on years, and I can help you do this, 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 and this, right? Because we got a bad rep as Amazon sellers. So you want to figure out their pain points and then possibly write them down, document them, reach back out in a couple weeks and be like, hey, I can fix this by doing this. I can fix this by doing this, and so on and so forth.
And then after you go ahead and you contact the suppliers, what's the next step? Go ahead and get a list. Go ahead and, like what does that process look like after you establish contact?
Yeah. So really what I'm reaching for when I'm reaching out to suppliers, a list. If I can avoid the account application and get a list first, that saves me and can save you a lot of time. Because the account application process is tedious. You got to put your bank information, you're shipping it, like all the same stuff over and over and over again.
Does it ever get automated when you're at your level? Is there like, an easy button when you're that size?
Well, we have Shanice is our easy button. She's our personal assistant. She's amazing.
Just presses the button and you guys get new accounts.
Yeah. So she's she fills out all the account applications. We send them to her. Hey, I found this company. I've spoken to our, the account rep or the owner. Here's his information. He said, and then that company will share the information with her. She'll fill it out, and then we'll get the account created. But at the end of the day, you just want the list, because the list is going to tell you so much about the company, whether they're selling cheap dollar store products, closeout items, whether it's all off-brand products. Those are things you kind of want to stay away from. But if you get a list with like, products selling between $2 and $10, all brand name, that's what you're shooting for.
And you mentioned going ahead and having Shanice, obviously, is, getting suppliers. Do they reach out to you, or sorry, let me rephrase my question. What's the difference between finding suppliers when you're starting out versus at what point do you start to get an abundance of suppliers? What point does it really, there's got to be like a curve there where you start to have access to a lot more suppliers?
Yeah, I would say really when you start seeing the flow of suppliers come in, it's when you start making a little more money. Because at the end of the day, the suppliers are about making green, right? Money talks. So if you're able to spend more money with suppliers, all of a sudden more suppliers just seem to appear. It's almost like a magic trick, right? The more money you're spending, it's like you have more cash. So you're like, how can I spend this cash? Then it motivates you to reach out to more vendors and distributors. And then you start opening more accounts and you're able to place orders quicker, grow the relationship faster because money talks.
It's exactly the same for me. My first supplier, Again, I started off very slowly. I just placed 1 order, 2 orders. My first month didn't make any profit, but as you start to build orders, this was something I actually picked up from Larry Labarsky. As you grow, if at the very least, if they're not going to give you discounts on the beginning or on anything else, once you start to really just like move volume, then at the very least, that's when you're going to start to see discounts. So, so true what you just said about, like moving product, and money talks at the end of the day. So we have 2 questions. One is a very funny comment. Haters are going to say it's a green screen. I think what proves it's not a green screen is the fire beeping.
The fire beeping?
What's it called? The fire detector. Smoke detector.
Oh, smoke detector. Yeah.
The beeping. Yeah. No, Eric's is not a green screen, I promise you.
Yeah, we can even go back. It's not a green screen.
I'm going to expand it. Head over.
What's the other question
over to
we got there, Noah?
Yeah, so the next question is, what listers are you referring to? So I should have clarified on this. It's a wholesale supplier list after you go ahead and after you contact a supplier. It's going to differ depending on every supplier, but generally they're going to have a catalog. They're going to have an inventory list of all the current products that they carry.
Yeah. And I'm happy to answer more questions if they're coming into the chat too, man. I think this is a community effort here. That's the beautiful thing about social media. We all get to connect in new ways.
Yeah, for sure. And definitely going to do a dedicated portion to questions. So if anyone has them, be sure to go ahead and leave them and we'll get to them. My last segment is I want to talk about the growth of Amazon. I think that's what a lot of people are here for. A big portion of my audience are people who either do retail drop shipping, wholesale drop. They more come around that space because obviously that's where I create content about. But a lot of them are looking to transfer or just like completely even transform their business. Because I was speaking with someone who he completely shut down his retail drop shipping because Amazon does not approve with that. And now he's looking for wholesale suppliers. And a big part of the reason why, even though our business models are different, but I still love every piece of knowledge you put out there, is because wholesale is wholesale. At the end of the day, you're building relationships. However you fulfill those items, yes, there's logistics to that, but really at the end of the day, you're just creating relationships.
Yes, absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
So I guess my question would be, if someone's starting, they have their Amazon account, they have, I guess, proof to show suppliers, what would be their next step? Because we talked about a beginner, but once someone who's starting in the business wants to transition, what would be your advice to them? Because I know you guys started at like $2 million a year in retail arbitrage.
Yeah. And I want everybody to keep in mind too that we were once at 0 sales. Like all this behind me, it didn't happen overnight. It took a lot of hard work and discipline and determination. But we were once brand new, no experience. And the transition for us from retail arbitrage, because that's how we started our business, to wholesale, I think the most important point I want to put across here is that it does not happen overnight. You're not just going to wake up one day and go from 100% retail arbitrage business to 100% wholesale business. For us, it took almost 2 full years to transition fully into wholesale. So, maybe the first 3 months, we were still doing 90% retail arbitrage because that's where the money was coming from. We had to fund the business. We knew how to do retail arbitrage, so we kept doing it because it was making us good money. And then we had 10% wholesale. And then we saw that there was more opportunity in wholesale. It was easier. We didn't have to go to 50 stores. We could get it shipped to us. We could purchase larger quantities. We could get better discounts. So then we went to a 20-80, where 20% was wholesale, 80% was retail arbitrage. And we just kind of grew it organically like that. Started hitting more trade shows, building more relationships, visiting more different companies, going on Craigslist, looking for different offers, and just kind of expanding organically over the course of 18 to 24 months. So it's a gradual process. I think a lot of people, they're just like, I want to do wholesale, and they forget about what's making them money. You got to produce cash flow.
At what point would you say you had the best way of finding suppliers? For me, that's just looking at competitors, seeing what items they're selling. For your business in the beginning, what was the best way that you and Sebastian were able to just find an abundant list of contacts to go ahead and connect with?
Trade shows.
Trade shows? Yeah, do you feel that they're becoming saturated at all? I mean, even because of people like you and Larry, I was at ASD 4 years ago. The amount of quote unquote Amazon sellers or third party was just, it's almost non-existent compared to now. You go to there now, you see like a million people. You ask them, oh yeah, I saw online Amazon.
Yeah, and this is where really understanding the lingo and knowing about the industry comes into play, right? Because to stand out of a sea of all these different Amazon sellers, you have to present yourself differently. You have to give them something of value that 99% of the other sellers aren't offering, right? Whether that's, hey, I'll run some free ads for you, or I'll optimize your listings, or I'll purchase more than the other guys, or whatever it is, right? You need to provide them some sort of value nugget so they remember you and you stand out from all those other Amazon sellers. But absolutely, still to this day, Sebastian and I just went to a trade show last week. We were at a trade show in Philadelphia. And then we were at ASD 3 weeks ago in Orlando. And now we're going to ASD in Vegas in August. And we're going to the Sweets and Sacks show in Chicago because it's still important. Because you'll find, I think this is a nugget. If you get one nugget from this, it'll be this. A lot of these vendors go to all the same trade shows. So if you start seeing them and they start seeing you time after time, they might say no 4 times in a row, but that 5th time they might just say yes.
Just to tap onto that, ask them what trade shows they're going to, because they're going to be able to give you a list of the best trade shows for you to attend.
Absolutely. That is a nugget as well.
So coming over from there, what was your value prop to these suppliers? What did you offer? And then as a second question, for someone, let's say, I'll talk to a lot of people, they say, I don't have any value prop. I don't have any thing to go ahead and offer them. What did you say? Like, dig deeper or more concrete, something like, do you have web development? Do you have something that you can offer them?
Yeah. So early on, our value proposition was that we were a smaller team, which a lot of people will be like, wait, how does that make sense? How does you being a smaller team provide them any value? And the value that's behind a smaller team, whether it's 2 or 3 people, 5 people, you don't have to give them an exact number, but you just let them know, hey, we're a smaller company, so we will be more focused on the relationship with you. We will put more effort into growing the relationship with you. We'll be able to place orders quicker. We'll be able to process returns and discrepancies faster, and just stuff like that. And if it's a brand, you could just go on Fiverr, edit some images for them, get some infographics, and send it to them. Just, hey, I noticed some of your listings. I think they could convert better with some of these infographics. Here they are. If you feel like using them, use them. If not, I understand, but I just wanted to help you with some value before we even started this relationship.
So if I was just starting and I didn't have any value props, I didn't know any technical skills, my value prop would be like, look at these brands. What do you see that you can help them with? Do you see their photos are bad? Do you see that there's something that you personally think you can improve on?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And even if it's just brand name products, right? Let's say, for example, this like this Orbit. This is just an example. Let's say there's a great 12-pack of this Orbit, right? And you could get this Orbit from this vendor, but there's no 18-pack, or there's no 2-packs, a 24-pack. There's no 3-packs, a 36-pack. But you're like, hey, I'll create 15 new listings for the products you offer. And I promise you that in the next 2 to 3 months, I'll be able to sell more inventory than you're selling to your other e-commerce guys. And they'll be like, wow, this guy or this girl's determined. I'm willing to see what they'll do. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's set up an account.
So you said that you love a no. Is there ever a no that you feel is it's too hard of a no to overpass? I contact a brand. They say, no, we have too many sellers. We don't do anything with third-party sellers. Is there anything that you just say, okay, it's not worth it, and it would actually be detrimental to my time to go after that brand?
Or
is that just a case-by-case basis?
Yeah, it's really case-by-case, but even like these big brands like Sun Warrior, some of these like huge brands that you see on Amazon, like that's what I use trade shows for, is to kind of go, hey, stop by the booth. What's up? It's E. We haven't talked in 6 months. That's not a company I would call or email anymore, because they have firm no's with their emails and their calling. But when you get a face-to-face interaction, that's really where the trade show value comes in, because then you get to talk, laugh a little bit. How was your trip? You want to go out to eat later? You kind of get to just converse like 2 regular people having a conversation.
You have a very similar story to that with Nestle.
Yeah. Yeah.
You mind sharing that? That's one of my favorite stories.
Yeah. So we've been going to trade shows for multiple years now. And about I want to say 3.5 years ago, I met this gentleman, Brian, at a trade show, and he was representing some brands, some of them being Nestle brands. And I was like, hey, Brian, I love your products. They taste phenomenal. Like, I'd love to carry your products on Amazon. He's like, Eric, we're not looking for any third-party sellers. I was just like, okay, kind of walked away with my head down, because this was early. I still got really beat up when someone told me no. And then we went back to another trade show 3 months later, saw him again, still said no. 6 months later, saw him again, still said no. I just kept going. Saw him probably 5 or 6 times over the course of the next 2.5 years. He told me no every single time. And then he finally called me a year ago, February. And he's like, Eric, I remember you came to my booth like 6 times. I'm ready to do business. What time can I come by your warehouse? I got some samples I want to give you. And that company, we order bi-weekly truckloads from. They're going to bring us about $1.5 million in revenue this year.
It's mind-blowing. And you mentioned this first on a Clubhouse. That's where I heard about it. And the line that you said afterwards, something I wrote down the very next day, it's that even though they might be working with someone else, you never know, someone's going to screw up. And if you reach out to these brands and, other people might call them, email them, other people might go to trade shows as well. But if you're persistent and year after year, it could take years, but someday, somewhere, one of these brands you want to work with is going to screw up, and you're going to be fresh in their mind, and they're going to be like, you know what, give them a chance.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It happens all the time. We were working with this company, Cello Wisps, for about 2 years. And we didn't even mess up. They were just changing their business model. They just wanted to go with one FBA seller. At the time, there was about 5 or 6 of us, and they picked the one who was more focused on health products, right? Because we sell everything, beauty, outdoor, sports and patio. I'll sell anything. But this company that they went with was primarily a health food company that only sold health foods. So we didn't lose it by any indiscretion of us. They just decided to go a different route. So I love that you brought that up because it's so true. You never know what's going to happen.
So we actually have a bunch of questions. Promise everyone we'll get to them in the end. If you have any, just post them in the chat. Last question I want to really just touch on, and then we have a lot of questions about FBA. But last question I want to talk about is, honestly, what's from here? You've reached this point. Are you going to keep scaling it up with Amazon? We've talked a little bit about Walmart together. Where do you see your business heading? I know you have a wholesale side as well. So, what are your goals as a business?
Yeah. So we're still going to be heavy focused on Amazon. The goal is for really Sebastian and I to step more and more away from the business. Right. So we're still here every day, but not the full day are we doing stuff for our Amazon business specifically. Sebastian runs a a software company where we're going to offer SaaS.
I'm waiting for it.
Yeah, software as a service. So he's going to be providing tools for Amazon sellers. He's been building it for 2 years. I'm really focused on our consulting through Amazon Lit, helping other Amazon sellers grow their business month over month and year over year like we have by using our experience. Like you said, we also have a wholesale company where we sell wholesale products to other mom and pops and brick and mortar stores and e-commerce sellers. So really, and then some of my day I spend investing in the stock market and reading stock charts. I'm doing, and cryptocurrencies, so I'm doing other things. I'm now looking for a rental property. So I'm doing other things, but still, I really see there's no reason why in the next year we can't be doing $7 million a month. And our business can continue to grow. There's just really no reason. There's just so much opportunity there. So this business
more on wholesale or private label?
Are focusing more?
Just diverting more resources, because I feel like you've grown wholesale, and it's obviously going to keep on growing. But wholesale, are you guys putting more resources into that? Because that's an area of Amazon that, even though it's so saturated, it's still so crazy how even with Thrasio and all this money, you can just go in, and it's probably the easiest way. You build without building a website, just to leverage Amazon's traffic and really grow a brand.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're focusing on both. You know, wholesale is obviously our bread and butter. It makes up 85% of our business, but we do still have some great selling private label SKUs. And actually, Sebastian and I were just talking the other day about possibly going a little heavier on the private label side and generating some additional sales through that as well. So we're open to both avenues. I just think whatever's working in the moment is what we're going to focus on heavy. Like just the other day, or about 6 months ago, not the other day, we completely stopped FBM. You know, for 6.5 years, we did fulfill by merchant. And then we just stopped it because this FBA is so profitable right now. It's so lucrative.
And I'm sure you guys did like a cost analysis on the space in your warehouse.
Yeah.
Now you get more space.
Yeah. Yeah. We removed 18 racks that had FBM products, and now we use it all for FBA inventory. And we just in one door, out the other.
No, he's joking. That's just the green screen. My question would be now, and then we're going to open it up the floor. But last questions. Number one is, have you ever thought about purchasing a private label brand? For me, it's something that I think is, it's down the road. If I have the money, if I have the means, instead of just like reinventing the wheel, there are so many great opportunities out there, and you can just buy a product.
Yeah, you know what? It's something I never really thought about. But now you've planted the seed, and I'm going to look more into it. You know, I've always been a firm believer that, you know, based on the resources I have and the knowledge, I can build my own, which is definitely possible and feasible. But it's like, why not? If someone already did, 75% of the work, and now all you got to do is manage it, absolutely, I'd be open to that.
Just putting it out there. I have some private label products, so if you want to take a look.
Yeah. Those are funeral products, right?
Funeral. I also sell home decor. Actually took what you said to heart. If it sells, it sells. Because of the pandemic. Now this live is now going to be demonetized, but because of the pandemic, everyone was just inside. So my supplier had funeral and planters, and the planters just sold out like crazy because everyone's gardening. So I was like, you know what? Just see what other sells. So I just contacted a bunch of home decor suppliers, and now we're like 50-50.
Yeah. So much opportunity, man. I love that.
It's always an evolving business. That's something that you got to learn early on.
Yeah.
And then my last question is, I want to talk about Walmart because I've been making a lot of content about it. I don't know. It's hit or miss. I believe that it really is going to be a good contender for Amazon, but then like they do something right. So when you were selling on the platform, they used to be terrible with refunds. They would always refund the buyer, and you would never get your money back. And then they started allowing it, and now they just moved back, and now they're not refunding everything. And then like with WFS, I keep hearing that they want to have 70 locations because they have the stores. It's just such an interesting dichotomy. So what are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on Walmart is a few. They're 10 years behind Amazon, but also what that allows is new opportunity because they're not as saturated. There's not as many sellers on it. Also, their user interface, their UI is almost like rocket science to figure out. So that prevents a lot of people from joining. But there's still a lot of success to be had on Walmart, especially, I think, and I'd love to hear your opinion on this, but in the private label sector. If you have a great selling SKU and you're trying to get it into other avenues for sales, then Walmart is a great avenue to take it.
Yeah, so I haven't done a lot of private label. I've created about 3 listings, hit or miss. I'm still a little bit, I'm not nuanced on the algorithm of how it works. But even just jumping on listings, in the beginning, I've been selling there for roughly about 1.5 years now. My competitors weren't on there. Also, their application process is much more stringent.
Yes.
So there definitely is. It's like Amazon, like with gated categories, it limits your competition. So it's just easier to get in there. But I absolutely agree with you. I was talking with someone else. Private label depends on the category. Grocery, electronics, those things sell like amazing on Walmart.
Yes.
Others, so funeral products. I wasn't the very first. There were about 100 funeral products on Walmart before I went on there. And I think I doubled the amount there. And now my competitors have gone on there. So I just jump on their listings. But when I started, there was like nothing there.
Yeah, that's good, man. Someone's got to break through somewhere. So I'm glad you did that.
And Target's another one. I keep hearing about it. They've been, they opened up a third-party program. So we'll see if they because, those are like the big 3. I think that out of all the retail companies that are going to stick around, Target and Walmart are probably going to be the best one. Maybe Costco is going to be the best one to compete with Amazon. But that's what I'm super interested in as a reseller.
Groupon too. I know a lot of our wholesalers, they have operations in their warehouse where they list on Groupon because sometimes they'll get 15, 20 truckloads and they'll just do Groupon deals like $10 off and they'll blow through that stuff in a couple days. It's crazy what Groupon has to offer.
I haven't even looked at that one. There's so
Yeah.
many. I can't.
Yeah.
I'm a one-person showman. I can't keep up with all this. I don't have a warehouse. I don't have any green screens. I'm joking. Okay, so we're coming up on the 45-minute mark. I promise everyone we're going to take their questions. So the first one is, I lost it. Can you talk more about FBA? So if you have a specific question, it's a very big program. I mean, you want to talk a little bit about FBA and just like, summarize the process?
Yeah. So FBA stands for Fulfilled by Amazon. Essentially, what a seller does is sends their products to Amazon's fulfillment network. They have, I don't know, dozens and dozens of fulfillment centers all over the country. You send your inventory to one of these fulfillment centers. They then spider web it out all over the country to different states. So when a customer purchases the item, they can get it to that customer in 2 days or less. So basically, you're leveraging Amazon's shipping and fulfillment network to sell your products, so you don't have to ship them to the end consumer. Amazon does that for you.
And it's amazing. Their algorithms, they determine everything. It's leverage. You get 2-day shipping.
Yeah, it's impressive. Sometimes even less.
Yeah, and they're working on that every day. They're working on that. So Frank asks, what size is your warehouse?
It's 20,000 square feet. There's about 16,000 square feet down here, another 4,000 square feet of office space.
Are you guys utilizing all of it? Or are you subletting some of it to someone else?
No, man, there's no room left in here. We worked with Von Dom Teas, which is like an Oprah endorsed tea company from India. We were doing their Walmart, Marshall's fulfillment, but we had to kick them out of here because we had no space left. We're actually looking. This lease is up in about, I want to say 20 months. So we're looking for probably 35 to 40,000 square feet.
Crazy. And okay, so this is a comment. Most of the items from suppliers are not profitable. I mean, it's definitely a common theme that you'll see just wholesalers in general. It really depends on where you're getting the products from this supply chain. I mean, what's your response to that?
Yeah, my response is you're absolutely right. Some initially products will not be very profitable, but what I encourage people to do is set the profits aside for a little bit, right? Obviously, you need to run a profitable business, so profit drives the growth. But initially, if you're making 5, 7, 8% on a $5,000 order, pull the trigger on it, because what it's going to do is it's going to prove to the supplier that you're serious about business. And then you're going to be able to negotiate lower discounts if you aren't already able to negotiate lower discounts on that first order. Most people don't know about a lot of the discounts, like line drives, promotional deals, monthly promotional deals, volume discounts. Like there's just so many different discounts that are available that people have no idea about.
One thing, I'm going to make a video about this, but one thing that really changed my business was I was listening to Larry Labarsky, and he said closeouts. And I was like, what's a closeout? I do drop shipping. I don't deal with deals. So then I went to my supplier and I see like a sales section and I'm like, I've never gotten that. I've been on this website well over 1,000 times and I've never gone to the sales. And you see like 15% off, 70% off clearance. And these are items that at regular wholesale price were not profitable.
Yeah.
But you factor in 70% discount from clearance. And now you have items where you're making 100% ROI.
Yeah.
So look at those. And it differs for every supplier.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this comes from Oscar, and he says, how do you scale more after 10K a month? So he's someone who he recently just hit this milestone. And, this question obviously is, how does he get past that? Yeah.
So, at $10,000 a month, that's what, $120,000 a year. So I'm assuming, Oscar, it's just yourself. What I think really needs to happen when you start growing your business is possibly bringing on someone part-time, right? Because I'm sure a lot of your day, I know a lot of my day early on was spent packaging inventory, right? And if you're spending a large portion of your day packaging inventory, then who's supposed to grow the business by opening up new wholesale accounts, finding new profitable inventory to purchase? Nobody, because you're packaging inventory all day. So I would allocate that task to someone, pay them, $12, $13, $14 an hour. So while they're doing that at $14 an hour for 4 hours a day, what is that, $56 a day? I can literally purchase, $10,000 more worth of inventory at a 20% margin. And in those 4 hours, make $2,000 and pay someone $56 to do the job that I was doing. If that makes
sense. I hired my first employee, quote unquote employee, was my sister. I just hired her on Sundays to help me ship out stuff to FBA.
Nice, man. Family's where it's at. That's great.
Next question is, how does a brand new seller avoid these suppliers' questions about revenue and getting a chance as a new business?
Yeah, you just got to talk to them, right? They're going to ask those questions, and you can let them know. You'll be surprised how far honesty gets you. You'll be surprised. Like, listen, I'm brand new in this journey, but I already understand a lot about this, and I'm willing to invest and spend money on these products. Just give me a shot, right? Especially if it's like a Hail Mary. If they're like, no, they want to see this, this, and this, and you don't have it yet, you can just throw a Hail Mary and go for it. Worst thing they could say again is no. You already got to know. A second no is not going to kill it. But also make a file of those distributors that said no, because when you start opening accounts, you will be able to open accounts. You'll be able to reach back out in 6 months, and you'll have some trade references, and you'll have some sales history, and you'll be able to reach out and be like, hey, I reached out 6 months ago. Here I am again. Here's my trade references. I got 5 of them. Here's my sales history. I'm growing now. Let's open an account.
Keep a directory. Get Google Sheets, Excel. Yeah. Make a list. If you can't get approved with them, grow your business. Try again in a few months.
Yes.
And just keep them. Once I find a supplier, even if I never use them, even if they're terrible, I'll still keep them in my directory just so I have reference that I already scanned the supplier. Yeah. And again, that was something I learned from you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Eric. So who is the best action taker? Who scaled the biggest from your course?
Wow, I might say
there's some pretty big sellers in there.
Yeah, I know Alex just joined a couple hours ago too, but I would say possibly there's a few of them, but off the top of my head, Simon, also Marion. So Marion, she's got a great story. She joined zero experience. Now she's 3 months in. She's doing like $25,000 a month, so that's huge. And then Simon, I've been mentoring Simon for about 2 years now. When I met him, he was doing about 100,000. Now he's doing about 500,000 or 600,000 a month.
Wow.
So he's scaling. There's a lot of them. There's literally dozens of people who are crushing.
How many members are in the course right now?
About 250-ish.
Oh, it's grown since I've joined.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, so this is a broad question. I'm not a fan of broad questions. How can we do wholesale? Eric already gave a great answer to this, so I highly recommend going back to the beginning of the stream, rewatch it. And again, he shares so many nuggets about wholesale, and I'm sure you'll be able to get another idea of it. And he also has content on his YouTube channel. And best part about it, the link is right below this. So after the stream, you can head on over to Amazon Lit. There's so much content on there. And then next question is, as a beginner, what do you do if a distributor asks for your Amazon storefront? I'm assuming, Sarah, you mean like if you don't have one, because I would recommend actually signing up either for an eBay store at the very least, or for, again, get your Amazon account and then contact them.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And even if you only have a couple of products on it, just send it over. They just want to see that you're actually doing what you say you're doing.
Exactly. Even if you have no reviews.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I can buy $1 store stuff in bulk, then ship it to Amazon to fulfill it.
Yeah, you could. If you're making money on it, you definitely got to do your research before you buy. Just don't go buying willy-nilly, you gotta do your research. But yeah,
FBA is just a fulfillment method. You can do it for wholesale, arbitrage, private label. You're just sending products into Amazon. That's essentially the business model.
Yes.
Opinion on 3PL versus Amazon FBA distribution.
Listen, Amazon's got such a sufficient network listen, 3PL is great, right? 3PL helps people early on grow businesses because they offer a service, right, for shipping, but like you're losing the customer interaction from Amazon. You know what I'm saying?
I hear that. I don't know if was it Deliver? I know there are some that so maybe that's just with Walmart. You don't get the Prime badge if you use a 3PL.
I'm not aware of any 3PLs that offer the Prime badge unless you're enrolled in Seller Fulfilled Prime and you're using a 3PL to fulfill your inventory. But what I do support is like prep services. I think those are good to help businesses grow in the beginning. But 3PL, like unless you're running like a Shopify store or something where Amazon doesn't have this amazing network to fulfill your orders, like that's when 3PLs really come into handy.
And Amazon can ship to other marketplaces as well. You can utilize them to ship to your Shopify, to any other customer, really.
And also the last thing I'll add with the 3PL is I know some large private label sellers who use 3PLs to store their inventory to send to Amazon.
Mm-hmm. Especially with the restrictions now.
Yeah.
So we already answered this. Yeah, you do private label.
Yeah, about 15% of our catalog is private label.
Is there a payment plan for your course?
Yeah, there is. It's 4-month payment plan.
The link to the free training, by the way, is in the description. Yeah. I forgot to mention it. How do I contact Amazon Lit for wholesale account?
Send me a DM on Instagram. I'll give you the email address.
So the links to their socials are in the description. You can find a link to their YouTube, and then from there, he has his. Do you have your Instagram connected?
To what? YouTube?
To your YouTube.
I would think so. I would hope so. If not, I'm going to make it happen.
And then also on Amazon, on Instagram, it's just at Amazon Lit.
Yeah. And really, technically, our wholesale business has grown so fast that we're really limiting the amount of sellers we take on. Now we're only taking sellers who are in the course, because it's just, if literally I'm getting dozens of emails a day, and it's just like I'd have to bring on a team of 4 or 5 to handle the amount of emails I'm receiving.
Once approved by a new distributor, do you have to contact each of their brands directly to make sure that they are allowed to sell on Amazon?
No, you do not. This is a common misconception that you need a brand's approval to sell on Amazon. It's called selective distribution. So it's in Amazon's terms of service. Technically, there is no brand that could regulate the sale of their products on Amazon. Now, when you enroll their product in brand registry and such, or you're a big brand like Adidas or Under Armour, there were times where those brands were regulated. But technically, it's legal and within Amazon's terms of service to sell any single brand name product on Amazon as a third-party seller.
And I think just another part of their question is, like, when you connect with a distributor, you don't really need within the distributor, they might have certain levels that you're not allowed to sell. So, they might have certain brands, and these brands want to just limit the amount of resellers. Yeah. So they might say, you can purchase from X, Y, and Z, but you can't purchase from this brand. And if you want to, you have to go through a separate application. Yeah. So there are sometimes those brand levels, but usually when you get with a distributor, they will have access to a majority of their catalog.
Yeah. No, that's a great point to ask. Hey, are there any brands that I can't sell? And
then MAP and other policies are just going to be brand dependent.
Yes.
How do you handle stress? This is a great question. How do you handle stress when doing business on Amazon? I'm surprised you don't have white hair right now, man.
Yeah, you know what? I'm not a very stressed out kind of guy. I'm just so super chilled out and laid back that it would take me. Literally, there's not a lot. I've been through so much hell in the prior to building my Amazon business, just in life, so many lows, low lows, that stress is just, prayer, meditation is really helpful. I kind of get centered. Sometimes I'll just go sit in my car and I'll scream really loud at the top of my lungs, and then just kind of sit in silence and just
You don't go into a trailer truck? You guys have enough trucks in there?
Yeah.
And then the next question is from Craig. We're coming up on the hour mark, so want to respect your time. How do you handle the risk that comes with buying products up front?
What do you mean, paying for inventory?
So I guess what he means, and Craig, feel free to clarify in another comment, but again, most of my audience is drop shipping. So a big appeal with that business model is that I don't have to take on the risk of buying it, versus with FBA. And this was something that I had to learn. Keepa is going to be your best friend. It's just learning the data and analyzing. Okay, now I've been doing this for over a year now, and I can look at a product and say, okay, buy 30 units, test order, and then we'll see, look at the data. Okay, I see it sells in the spring. It's not going to be good in the winter, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm perfectly comfortable. You should be perfectly comfortable as well with buying inventory up front if you've done your research, like Noah just talked about. Looking at the Keepa chart, your competitive sellers, analyzing the listing. Is Amazon on it? If they are on it, what's their price at? How long are they on it? Do they drop out? And at the end of the day, about 8% of our inventory that we purchase makes us no money, right? We lose money on it. But the other 92% we crush it on. So you're always going to have a couple losers, but as long as your winners are outweighing your losers, it doesn't matter at the end of the day.
So very interesting, and I just want to end on this point. We have like 2 more questions, but
yeah, that's fine.
I think
we can take those questions.
Sure. So my biggest thing, and I'm a huge proponent of this. I believe that what led to Amazon's success is the third parties. And obviously there are a lot of aspects to why third-party sellers help them expand, catalog, and access to other items. But for me, it's the software side of Amazon. So a big thing is the BSR and that data. But think about the nightmare that it would be if sellers didn't have that data. You, as an Amazon seller, you would just be sending in listings to things that maybe this has more reviews, so you send in more units. And on Walmart, it's kind of like, just throwing darts at a board and seeing which one sticks right now. There's no data.
Yeah.
So imagine when they give that data, when there's going to be software out there, their sellers are going to be able to make more optimized purchases, send in units that they actually have data for how many units they should be sending in. It's going to allow for Walmart to optimize their warehouses more. So I think a big factor of what led to Amazon's success is sharing that data and the softwares that give the tools that give sellers that data.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to see that. I think that would be phenomenal.
Well, we'll see. There's so many. There's a lot of softwares out there for Walmart, but none of them are there yet. Is there any specific way to avoid claims from brands when buying bulk and sending items to Amazon?
So what you want to look at is the third keep it graph, the third graph down.
You have a video on this, by the way.
Yeah. There's a video on our YouTube channel. What that will indicate is how many sellers are consistently selling on the listing. So if you're seeing consistency of 3 or more sellers, very highly unlikely that you're going to get any complaints selling that brand. But if it's dropping to 1 and then it's going to 2, 3, and then it's dropping back to 1 seller and it keeps dropping back to 1, that means that listing, the brand is removing sellers. So you will get some sort of claim if you jump on that listing.
And I think this ties into the second to last question is, what software do you guys use for your FBA business?
Yeah, so we schedule a lot of shipments through a company called Unishippers. We use Keepa, DS QuickView. We use some FBA calculators. We use an in-house repricer that we built. We use UPC scraper. GoOr is a great one.
You guys built the UPC scraper, right?
Yeah, and we're going to be making that available. It will only be available to course members, but it's going to be available. I'm pushing for Sebastian to get it done by the end of the year. Right now, honestly, Noah, there's nothing exists like this.
There's really not. And I realized, I've been using Scan Unlimited even before I was in your course. I was using it for 3 years now. And I thought it was like the best thing since sliced bread. And then I was talking with Scott, and he's like saying how his software that they built goes by title, it searches by all these parameters. And I'm like, holy crap! There's so many listings I'm missing. It's just like there's nothing like a custom situation or a solution.
Yeah. That's why I'm a firm believer in Amazon software built by Amazon sellers. It's the best.
For sure. So how do credit cards work in applying for high limits? That's probably another live stream in itself.
Yeah. But I could touch on it. So, credit cards, you just got to keep spending money and repaying it back, and then you'll be able to request for higher limits through your credit card provider. But something that a lot of people don't know about and should be leveraging are net terms. So net terms is you purchase the inventory or you are loaned the inventory from a distributor. They give it to you and you don't have to pay for it for 14, 30, 45 days. So you're able to actually send that inventory to Amazon, start making money off of it and paying the vendor back with the money you're making off the inventory, and not have to pay them anything out of pocket because they're loaning or essentially putting it on consignment, right? They're consigning this inventory to you.
Aside from net terms, do you use any other solutions from a bank? Do you use Amazon lending, payability?
Yeah. So early on, first 2 years, we went heavy credit card. We were maxing out 5, 6, 7 credit cards every single month. The Plum card is a great American Express credit card because it has a 60-day payment grace period. The same way net terms are great, the Plum card is great because it allows you to purchase that inventory and literally pay it back with the money you're making off the inventory because it's 60 days instead of 30 days. And then we started leveraging Amazon lending. We started with like $10,000, then 50, then 100, then 500, then a million. But we just kept leveraging that. And then now we have an SBA loan, which is a loan backed by the government. We were actually the first Amazon seller to get an SBA loan with one of these large national bank chains. It was a nightmare.
I got a loan through Capital One. I know I'm not at your level, but even for the amount that I got, it was a process.
Yeah. Did they want to know like where all your inventory was and like
inventory and even because I'm not. I mean, for me, I had to do a personal guarantee, so I had to show personal income, properties and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, when you learn the data through Keepa and such, and you order a 30-unit inventory, when do you know when to fill up inventory again and send it to FBA? For me, it's mostly just looking at how many sellers are on that listing as well as looking at the history. So if I know that based off of whether you're using Jungle Scout or any of them, everyone has their opinion on whether they're accurate. You can use whatever software, but like get an estimate. Look at the BSR drop if you can on Keepa. It's going to be a little bit of a more accurate, but get an estimate of how many sales. And then you can even be more conservative. So if it says it's doing 1,000, lower it down to maybe 800 if you want to be very conservative. Then take a number of sellers. So if there's 10 sellers, just divide 800 and then add yourself, obviously, because you want to be selling it. So 11. So for every seller, how many units are they doing? And then I would start off by sending that many in per a month or 3 months. So let's hear it from you because I know you guys do a bigger scale.
Yeah, well, when it comes to really ordering the inventory again, I think you broke it down perfectly on how to order inventory. You just take the estimated sales divided by the competitive sellers plus yourself. But when it comes to reordering, an important aspect you need to understand is your lead times from your vendors. So let's say you bought 30 units, you're selling 1 unit a day, and you know that you have a 7-day lead time from your vendor, and then it takes you another 7 days to get the inventory to Amazon. So by the time 15 days go by and you have 15 units left in stock, you should be purchasing more inventory because by the time it gets to you and then it gets to Amazon, you're going to be able to replenish that. Probably even 18 days. So you got that little buffer room as well.
And do you guys utilize any other spaces besides your warehouse to hold inventory? You just like have it shipped directly to you guys?
Sometimes we sublease this lady has a warehouse down the street. Sometimes we're just so packed in here, stuff's to the ceiling, we can't even move. Everybody's running around like crazy, and we'll send 2 truckloads over there for a couple days while we kind of sort this out.
And someone asked for the free training. I just posted the link to the Amazon Lit free training, so be sure to go ahead and check that out. Also, the link is underneath the description. Last question we have is people are saying nice, like the vid, and then will Amazon ever offer alternate payment types since the seller can't control it?
I don't know what those are. Sezzle, Klarna.
I'm not sure exactly what those are, but I mean, in terms of alternate, I know they added the Amazon gift card, which I wasn't a huge fan on. I'm sure you guys just get it straight to your bank.
Yeah, that's where I want all the money.
I imagine getting like $1 million in an Amazon gift card.
Yeah, I'm assuming this gentleman or lady, she might be selling from overseas in the United States because those sound like foreign banks or foreign like bank apps.
Like Pioneer, etc.
Yeah, or like TransferWise or Payability stuff, or not Payability.
Oh, I don't think they would, honestly, because they do make a lot of money off of that section in the Amazon payments. I don't think they would give that up. It's not like Walmart where it sends it to Hyper Wallet or Pioneer.
Yeah,
they control it. Same thing with eBay. eBay now switched from PayPal because they want to control that.
Yeah, which makes sense for them.
Yeah, and then how do you control customer returns? We didn't touch on this. This is another hour-long conversation, but how do you control customer returns and customer damaged products and refunds?
Yeah, so that's really why I love Fulfilled by Amazon FBA so much, is because most of the time Amazon deals with the returns, right? Amazon's taking care of the return. I don't have to handle the product. I don't have to deal with the customer. Amazon processes it. And then if it's in sellable condition, they return it to my inventory and I sell it again. If it's in non-sellable condition, depending on if it was damaged or not, I either get credited my account or I lose the money on it. But I think it's much easier than we've did FBM for years, and literally you're commuting with the customer. You're waiting for the inventory to get processed back to your place before you refund them. And then there's complaints, and it's a lot. But we handle returns. I think this is legendary, and it really opened up my eyes early on. Early on, I was so focused on a $30 return that I was getting every day that I forgot to focus on the $3,000 in sales I was making, because I was so like, just, oh man, another $30 return. It's all I think about all day. The second I stopped caring about that $30 return, that $60 return, it doesn't matter. It's such a small piece of the business. Just let it slide. Refund the customer. Don't argue with them. Obviously, if it's something you can fight it, but just put it to the side. It's small peanuts at the end of the day. Focus on the growth of the company.
Something else I learned from you, and I'm sure this live stream is just full of me saying that, but one thing that you said was you analyze all of your ASINs every single, I think you said month, or I don't remember the time frame, but you analyze the return rate for your per ASIN. And if it exceeds something, you get, that's it. And for me as a dropshipper, like, there's like some products, it's like I have a high return rate, but it's such a good margin. And I'm like, it's just not worth it at the end of the day. So even if I make, a 30, 50%, 100% margin, it's like if it has a 30% return rate, it's going to be, what's it called? Just negatively affecting your account. It's going to be customer reviews. It's just not worth it.
Time suck. Yeah.
That's a good point. And then also one thing that I'm curious for you is, what's your supplier process? Because for me, when they have a defective product or something happens, that's something I'm always cautious about when working with suppliers. Like, what's your process for it's a defective item? How long do I have to report it? Because I also ship from my supplier directly to Amazon. So if Amazon finds, it takes a decent amount of time to check in and all this other stuff. So how do you work around that?
So we make sure that when we open up accounts, we communicate our requirements and they communicate theirs. So like some of our requirements is we don't accept inventory that's dated less than 120 days to expiration. We don't like damaged out of the box items. We want all new condition inventory. That's pretty much all we require. And then we ask them, what do they require? And a lot of our companies have a 2-day window where you can submit a discrepancy report. So we have literally right here, we have a poster on our wall that has our vendors, and it says 2 days, 4 days, 6 days, 3 days, 1 day. And based on the vendor, when it's shipped here, my team knows, hey, I have 48 hours to put together this discrepancy report and report it back to the company, because that's their requirements.
Last question is, do you recommend any prep service?
I just shared a link in the private Facebook group with I think every prep service in the company. I mean, in the country, but I can't think of any of them off.
Do you mind if I share that with my Facebook group?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Okay, so I'll share that with you guys. Differential equations. So be sure to hop over there.
You know what's funny, Noah? Differential equations is the reason why I stopped going to school for civil engineering. So I'm sure this guy is a civil engineer or something, because I took that course and I was like, there's no way I'm dealing with differential equations for the rest of my life. And I stopped going to school for civil engineering, and I switched to construction engineering. But that's just.
Did you utilize construction before you transitioned to private label?
Yeah, so I ran a construction company for about a year. Had 7 or 8 employees. I did. I built some homes and some bathrooms.
That's like whenever I talk to someone and, they're selling on Amazon, it's so easy for me now to understand how you got into this, how you manage some employees. Your background, construction company managing, it's like even back then you were still same processes, just different business.
Yeah, I fell into that too. The employer I was working for got arrested and went to jail, and he asked me if I could run his business, and I said, sure.
So. I'm sure he saw what you were he knew down the line you're going to be the top Amazon seller. He's like, yeah, let this guy run my business. So if someone says, so did I. So I guess you're not the only person who switched out.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming on my channel.
End of
the conversation. End of the questions. So you were the first guest I brought on in a while. Everyone who's still watching, be sure to go ahead, follow Eric on Instagram. Eric's been a huge inspiration to my business. I love talking to this guy. There's so much knowledge. If you just passively watch his content, I promise you'll learn more than if you were to go ahead and just even talk to other sellers. So follow Eric on YouTube, follow Eric on Instagram, absorb his knowledge, connect with like-minded people. I don't know what else I could say, but I can't speak highly enough about you.
Thanks. No, man, I appreciate this. Thanks for having me on the show. It's been amazing. I love networking and talking. I'm glad, I've been seeing a lot of you around, especially in Clubhouse. And, I know you've been in the course, but I don't think I ever remember actually seeing you other than like a picture, maybe like early on in the live calls in the course. But like now it's nice to put like a face to the name and kind of, it's just cool, man. So I appreciate it.
As a creator, it's nice when you start because you get to know your few foundational supporters. But then, even now thankfully I have 14,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
And I just remember the OGs, but like now there's so many people. Yeah. But it's a good problem, but a bad problem at the same time.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to end it there. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Again, follow Eric. Be sure to go ahead and give a like, comment. The replay will be available. So if anyone wants to watch it, and I will have timestamps made available so you can easily access the different points that we discussed. And also be sure to go ahead, subscribe if you are not already subscribed. Stay tuned for future interviews with other sellers. I have big plans for who I want to bring on. And who knows, Eric might join us again in the future. So thanks everyone for tuning in. Peace.
Peace.